Today's episode was sponsored by Incogni. Halloween is almost here, so in the spirit of the season, I'm gonna pop some corn and watch one of my favorite scary movies. Hello?
Do you like scary movies?
Oh my god, that's so funny. I was just talking about how I do. Halloween is almost here, so in the spirit of the season, I'm gonna pop some corn and...
Well, do you also like discussing your car's extended warranty?
I mean, sometimes, but... Hey, wait a second, is this a robocall? Damn it, I thought I was gonna get murdered. There is nothing scarier than having your night ruined by unwanted robocalls. And that's why I use Incogni. Basically, the reason that robocalls happen is data brokers. If you've ever given out your information, there's a chance that a data broker has taken it and then sold it to a bunch of companies who put it on their lists and use it to contact you, even when you wish that they wouldn't. Once you're on a data broker's list, they're required to remove you from it if you ask them to. But unfortunately, there are so many of them and they're so hard to contact that can be very difficult to do on your own. And that's where Incogni comes in. With Incogni, all you have to do is put in your information and sit back while they do the rest. I did it myself and it's genuinely that easy. Right now, Incogni is offering my viewers 60% off on an annual plan. So follow the link below and use code WillyMuse to start taking back your personal data today. Incogni keeps my phone lines clear so I can focus on the calls that really matter. Hello?
I'm gonna gut you like a fish.
Thanks, Incogni. Spooky season is finally here, so today I wanted to start things off by talking about the spookiest thing that I personally can think of. The noticeable decline in viewership that my channel has been experiencing in the past few months. Recently, I've noticed that my videos haven't been doing great. I feel like the best performing thing I release nowadays will get several thousand fewer views than my best performing video from a few months ago, which is unfortunate. The hope is that the opposite would be true. And I'll be honest, I'm not really sure why this is happening. Like, if anything, views should be the same, because I'm basically just making the same video over and over and over again. Still, I'm no quitter. If I were, I'd probably be a lot happier. I figure I just gotta keep going and doing my best to try and give the people what they want. And in order to do that, I did my best to try and think of if the people ever told me what they want. It maybe wasn't the most creative solution to my problem, but it actually did work. I realized that there is a movie more people have asked me to talk about than any other. And better yet, it's a Christian horror movie. So it's the perfect thing for me to be discussing this time of year. The only reason I avoided it this long is because I had already seen a lot of people cover it. But, you know, stats are down, so I figured if I am gonna compromise my integrity and steal Curtis Connor's sloppy seconds, I might as well do it while it's seasonally appropriate. The movie in question is called The Reconciler, although you probably know it better as the Christian version of Saw. Especially because odds are pretty good that that's what I'm going to refer to it as in the title of this video. And you guys, this was a weird one. I don't know how it's possible, but it's somehow weirder than you'd expect the Christian version of Saw to be. The structure of it is weirdly complex for something so stupid. There are multiple stories jumping between multiple time periods. It's like a fucking Inarritu film. And to make matters worse, I still don't really get how one of those stories is supposed to relate to the others. Or like I do, but I don't. The movie begins in a dark room as some unseen figure writes a letter. And you can tell that this guy isn't fucking around because he uses the fancy kind of pen that you have to dip in ink. He also does that thing that pirates do where they seal the envelope with wax and stamp it. I've always really wanted to try that, but I don't have anyone to send a letter to. So. Presumably, this is supposed to be the reconciler. And I didn't really think too much about this scene the first time around, but after rewatching it, now that I know how the movie ends, I realize that this is an extremely weird thing to include. No spoilers, but I'll probably have to come back to this part a little later. From there, we cut to what I assume is the storage room in some megachurch somewhere as a young man awakens in a haze. He nervously inspects his surroundings and tries to escape, and when he realizes that he can't, he goes to wake up the other man who was passed out behind him by taking his cane and poking him with it.
What? Who are you?
I was gonna ask you the same question.
Where am I?
Another great question. You don't know?
No.
I just woke up a few seconds ago.
Did you try either of these doors?
That one is a bathroom storage room. And that one is locked.
Can I have my cane?
And that's what we're dealing with, which, you know, not quite as intense as Saw, but I still probably wouldn't want it to happen to me. And yeah, from there we kind of just watch as they try and fail to climb out of a heating duct, which is about as exciting as it sounds. Despite having a lot of them, this movie isn't particularly plot heavy. It really is Saw without any violence, which means that it's pretty much just people standing there for an hour and a half. I think that's why it has to keep jumping back and forth between all these stories. If it were just about these guys in the basement, it would be even more unwatchably boring than it already is. And that's fine. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to do in filmmaking. Even the actual Saw had a story that took place outside of the dungeon. Of course, that story was about trying to solve what happened in the dungeon, so it made sense why it was there. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure that's the case here. After the film establishes the main plot, it cuts to this storyline about a reporter that feels very out of place in this movie. Although honestly, I feel like the case could be made that the opposite is true, and actually this kidnapping storyline feels very out of place in this movie about a reporter, because in terms of runtime, I feel like they're pretty comparable. To give you a sense of what I mean, the movie spends about 5 minutes establishing the main story, and then cuts to this reporter for 4 minutes. And because the reporter is the only person who's in every scene of her story, she honestly feels like the protagonist. Obviously, I will talk about her eventually, but if I were to try and discuss this movie's plot in chronological order, I think it would result in the single worst headache of my life, so I'm going to try and take each subplot one by one as much as possible. So yeah, back to that supply closet. After the two men realize that they're stuck together, they start asking questions.
So what's with the cane?
Alright, that's probably not the first question I would have thought of in this situation.
Do you have any idea how you got here?
Yeah, that one makes more sense.
Not a clue.
What's the last thing you do remember?
Walking to my car after I dropped off my girlfriend.
You on good terms with her?
What does that got to do with this?
I'm just asking.
She's not the kind of girl that would do something like this.
I should hope not. I feel like when you're in a relationship with someone, it's kind of assumed that you don't think they're the sort of person who would knock you out, kidnap you, and lock you in a room with a stranger. Unless, of course, that's your thing, at which point I think that would probably be a conversation that you had beforehand. And yeah, they're not great detectives. The only other information they gather about each other is that the young dude is a graphic designer named Smitty, and the older dude is a reporter named Ed, who was at home sleeping on his couch before he got kidnapped. They don't seem particularly invested in getting out. They kind of treat the situation like you would like a traffic jam, maybe? Just a minor inconvenience that's keeping them from getting on with the rest of their day.
Nice to meet you, Smitty. My name's Ed.
Wish I could say it was nice to meet you. But...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
If this were happening to me, I would be panicked and trying everything I could to escape. Mostly because I wouldn't want to be forced to make conversation with a stranger, but still. After half-assedly trying to figure out why they would be kidnapped together, these guys try the door again and then see if their cell phones suddenly have service. And when neither of those things work out, they kind of just vibe. This story could probably be over in 30 seconds if they tried slightly harder, but they can't seem to be bothered. Like the first clue is in one of their pockets, and it takes them until the next scene to find it.
What?
That's weird.
What, something missing?
No, nothing at all. I have my driver's license, my credit cards, even all my cash is here.
So?
So obviously the motivation wasn't robbery.
Speak for yourself, all I found was my phone.
It had a fucking ribbon tied around it. I'm sorry, but these people deserve to die. The two use the key to open the lock on a random trunk that they've been sitting on this whole time but haven't once questioned. And here's where things get interesting. Well, interesting is a strong word.
You know, we don't know what's in there.
We got nothing to lose. Is that what I think it is?
That looks like a body.
Like a dead body?
Only one way to find out.
Poke him with your cane!
Well?
They're alive.
Oh, I guess that works too. I'm not sure how he's still alive though. They took a very long time to find him, and seeing as he's in a burlap sack inside of a trunk in a sealed room, I can't imagine that the airflow is all that great. I feel like a more realistic version of this movie would have the reconciler burst in right now and say, "You killed him! You dumbasses are so bad at solving puzzles that you killed him. I hope you're happy."
Here, help me get them out.
Hey, nice use of they, them pronouns. You see, Christians, you can do it. They lift the body out of the trunk and unwrap it, and Smitty instantly recognizes it as his twin brother Alex. Ed grabs a thing of smelling salts taped to the roof of the trunk and uses them to wake up Alex, because apparently that one's easier for them to figure out than finding a key in their pocket. And once he's awake, they finally start making headway on figuring out why they're all locked up together.
All right, we both woke up in here too, okay? All right, we don't know what's going on or why we're here. We don't know.
Actually, I think I might know.
What?
Alex, right?
Yeah.
This might seem like a personal question, but I assure you it's very important. How's your guys' relationship right now?
I don't see what that has to do with any of this, man.
I'm gonna guess that means not good. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that you guys haven't seen each other for a long time before today.
How could you possibly know that? Are you the one who put us in here?
I'm locked in here just like you guys are.
Then how do you know my brother and I were...
Because it fits the MO.
The MO of what?
The guy I've been writing about.
Are you fucking kidding me right now, Ed? This guy has been writing about a kidnapper, and it didn't cross his mind until now that maybe that was related to the fact that he's been kidnapped. For those curious, this scene occurs about a third of the way through the movie.
You know the guy that did this to us?
I don't know him personally, but I know him by reputation.
I don't understand. Who are you talking about?
They call him the Reconciler.
You really think
The who?
Dude, don't you read the papers?
Yeah, I get most of my news. Never mind, okay? What did you call this guy?
The Reconciler. This has his signature all over it.
What signature?
Kidnapping estranged family members and locking them up until they talk.
The way they talk about the Reconciler is very silly to me, because you'd think that he was like #1 on this world's version of the FBI's most wanted list, but what he's doing isn't really that bad in the grand scheme of things. All he does is get people in a room together and force them to work through their differences before letting them go unharmed. Frankly, it sounds more like a human interest story than true crime, so the idea that people would be fearfully checking the papers, wondering when he's going to strike next, feels odd. And what makes the criminal's apparent ubiquity all the more unbelievable is that, as best as I can tell, he's only done this twice before, which honestly isn't that much. I've kidnapped more people than that. As the reporter covering the Reconciler case, Ed knows all about the villain's previous crimes, so he tells us about them. And like I said, the movie cuts back and forth between all these storylines as it goes, but I'm just gonna knock both of them out right now because, well, it's easier. The first victims of the Reconciler were a couple of detectives who, based on the way they respond to their own kidnapping, are not very good at their job. They wake up locked in their car in a warehouse somewhere with no memory of how they got there. And to make matters worse, they don't exactly seem to be on the best of terms right now.
Ha ha ha, very funny.
Excuse me?
Are you trying to get the last laugh here or something?
You think this is a joke?
Well, you are sitting behind the wheel. You wait till I fall asleep, you drive to a new location, you wake me up, and then you act like you had nothing to do with it.
Wow.
Funny.
Wow.
Funny.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Stace, come on. I mean, lately you've had no sense of humor. Why would I try to get you mad when I find out that you finally got your transfer?
Pro tip, if you think someone might be upset with you, try to avoid telling them that they don't have a sense of humor. In my experience, that tends not to be the play. Also, not entirely sure that her sense of humor is really relevant in this situation. I like to think that I can take a joke, but if I were a detective on a stakeout and my partner tried to convince me that someone drugged and abducted us, I don't think I would be laughing. That said, though, I do think I would handle it better than this lady does.
Come on, what?
What are you doing?
Trying to get out of here?
Stace.
Oh my gosh, what is going on?
I don't know.
That's it. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, how are you gonna do that?
No, don't!
My gun's empty. My spare clips are gone too, and my cell phone.
She tried shooting out the window before she thought to look for her cell phone and make a call? Also, I'm no expert in guns, I'm more of a scythe man myself, but I have to imagine that shooting at a glass window at point-blank range is not a safe thing to do. And seeing as she carries a firearm as part of her job, you'd think that she'd know that. I'm not gonna lie, I think that this lady might be a terrible detective, which is not entirely irrelevant to the story. Realizing there's no escape, the dude checks his pockets. Again, not sure why it took him this long, but in them he finds a recording from the Reconciler who basically tells them that their strained partnership is affecting their job performance and they need to work it out.
Take some time to talk. Really talk about how you got to this point of a lack of communication and partnership. Once you've worked things out, I will let you out of the car.
Oh no.
I'm not sure why she's acting like that's so bad. That feels like the best case scenario for this situation. They could literally be being harvested for their organs right now, but instead they're basically just getting free couples therapy. Still, the movie believes that them having an open conversation is dramatic enough to be a cliffhanger, so it cuts away from this storyline for long enough that I forgot it existed, and by the time it returns, they're working shit out. And as it turns out, their issues aren't really that complicated.
It's your promotion.
My promotion?
I've been with the department 3 years longer than you have, and I've done good work. And when the promotion comes up, who gets it? You do.
So you resent me now?
No, not at all.
All right, now you're just being sarcastic.
Bill, you're a great partner. You're the best I've ever had. You tell anyone I said that and I'll kill you. It's just that every time I get in the car with you, I'm faced with that every time. And you don't deserve that. You deserve a partner who's going to be there with you 100%.
That actually feels pretty reasonable. Granted, as previously discussed, she is a terrible cop, but even still, I think that being upset that your partner got a promotion over you despite having 3 years less experience is perfectly natural. And all things considered, she handled the situation pretty well. She realized that her feelings on the matter were interfering with her ability to do her job, so she requested a transfer. I feel like that's better than the alternative. I'm all for talking things out, but you can't really go up to someone and say, I'm so resentful of this good thing that happened to you that it's becoming a distraction for me. Evidently, Boy Cop doesn't agree.
Why didn't you just tell me before it became unbearable? For both of us.
Think about it. I complain, something gets filed, right? The rumors start. Stacy's hard to work with. Stacy's a woman. Stacy's hormonal. Stacy thinks she's special. And I don't ever want it to be about that.
Honestly, great point. Chalk this one up to privilege, but the fact that this is harder for her to navigate because she's a female in a male-dominated profession didn't even cross my mind. Also, why did the man get promoted over the woman with 3 more years of experience? Okay, yes, she is bad at her job, but even still, that's not a good look for the police department. Despite bringing up issues of institutionalized sexism, I don't think that this movie really buys into them. As best as I can tell, it thinks that the lady cop is fully wrong for having feelings.
Look, I don't mean to ask the obvious, but so you get your transfer.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if your new partner gets promoted? What are you going to do?
Why would you even suggest that? Jesus Christ. If you're trying to reconcile with someone, you say, you'll get them next time, or I know you can do it. What you don't say is that this might happen again, so you need to learn how to shut up and deal with it. Still, somehow this conversation leads to them getting on the same page and making up, and so the reconciler allows them to leave the car. And yeah, that's pretty much the first of the 2 stories that the reporter tells. I know you probably won't believe me when I say this, but that is also the more interesting of the 2.
JR, wake up.
Those 2 are father and son. I don't care to know the dad's name, but the son is JR. And the only reason I remember that is because I have a theory that the actor was supposed to call him Junior, but he misread it in the script and everyone just went with it.
I think I know where we are.
You do?
Yeah, look. Mom always wanted you to bring me here for like a father-son hike.
Your mother put you up to this.
Of course not, Dad. I'm just as confused as you are.
So this isn't some kind of ploy to get me to spend time with you.
How terrible is his relationship with his wife that he was that quick to believe she would drug him and her own son and then handcuff them together and leave them abandoned in the woods? Although I guess maybe the reason he's willing to believe that she did this is that he's such a shitty dad that she'd actually be justified if she did. Basically, the reason these two were targeted is because this man really does not want to spend time with his son. Like, he really does not want to spend time with his son. I will give him this, though. He checks his pockets way quicker than anyone else in this movie.
No, please.
What? What's it say?
The keys to the cuffs at the top of the trail.
That's it? You just said where to find the keys?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say it. The reconciler half-assed this one. This really isn't a difficult situation he's put them in. At most, I'd say that it was an inconvenience. The chain he's used to tether them together is long enough that it won't really affect the way that they walk, so pretty much all they have to do here is go on a hike. And the dad hates his own child so much that he can't even bring himself to do that.
What are you doing?
Put the chain up on the rock.
Why? What are you doing?
Smash these cuffs and get us out of here.
Really?
Of course.
You really hate spending time with me that much, don't you, Dad?
It does feel hard for JR not to take that personally. Also, what exactly is his plan here? Because they still need to climb to the top of the mountain. That's where the car is. Does he just want more distance between him and his son than the chain will allow for? Whatever the case, it obviously doesn't work. They end up having to go on a hike in their shackles, and it looks nice. Honestly, the view is beautiful, and it seems pretty safe. There's even a handrail. Along the way, the son insists that the dad show him the letter they got from the reconciler, and it basically says that as a soldier, the dad has fought for everyone but his family. This leads to them getting into a heated conversation in which the son says that the dad was never there for him, and the dad says that the reason he was away so much was to protect him. And then, despite the visible safety precautions that are lining the trail, JR Jr. falls off a cliff. I'm not sure how this happens. It seems like he's just really clumsy. Okay, yeah, I'm starting to get why the dad is ashamed of him. For whatever reason, dangling off the side of a cliff causes Junior to pass out, and so the dad picks him up and carries him to the top of the mountain. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. After that, their relationship is all better. The reconciler's done it again. I've just gone over 2 of the 3 side stories in this movie, and I figure that while I'm here, I might as well bang out the 3rd one as well, because, well, there's never going to be a good time to bring it up. It really does not connect to the rest of the movie at all. It begins with a reporter typing up a wedding announcement the way all writers do, in a document that's already been formatted with a picture. Her boss, played for some reason by Rowdy Roddy Piper, calls her over and gives her a new assignment.
So, you keeping up?
Oh, yeah, covering the latest fashion shows.
Yeah. You know, you've put in your time. And you always got your head down. You're working hard. You never complain. I love you for it. You get your job done. How would you like to sink your teeth into something real. A real story.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, I can't tell if he's drunk or if his character is supposed to be drunk, because one of those things is definitely true. Smart money is probably on the former, but based on the dialogue, I do think that the latter is a strong possibility.
Okay, listen, I've been thinking. I look out here, and I see progress, okay? I see battery-powered cars. I see solar panels, and I see equal rights for a lot of people. Yet, it seems darker. It's darker, it's grayer. I was talking to my dad over the holiday, and I just said, my dad says God is not dead.
Maybe it's both.
We act like he is, or we kick him to the sideline.
God.
Yes. Just think about this now. If it becomes from a religious aspect, black and white, good and evil, hey, look at me. You're like the fence in the yard. But if you take down the fence, what happens?
Freedom.
No, great. I'm sorry. Grave.
So, what do you want me to write about?
What I just said.
I don't think you could have made that any clearer. Still, in the unlikely event that some of you didn't understand what the fuck that man was talking about just now, I will clarify. Basically, he wants her to write about the graying of America. That's as much as I can clarify, because that's as much as I understand. She starts her article like all journalists looking for a reliable source of information would, but by talking to the pastor of a megachurch.
So, with this article that I'm writing, The Grain of America, I wanted to interview a few religious leaders in the community just to get their opinion.
The graying of America. With a guy my age, you probably should be really specific about graying. What do you mean when you say the graying of America?
Just that there aren't real clear lines on morality. What everybody thought was right and wrong is now right for some and wrong for others.
Is that what this is all about? Because if it is, I don't think that's new. I think people have always had differing views on morality. I think that's just called disagreeing, and it's actually been around for a while now. If I were to read between the lines of what they're saying here, I think that the black and white they're talking about is Christian versus non-Christian. And I can very confidently say that those disagreements have always been there. It just seems like they weren't, because up until fairly recently, most people kept their disagreements to themselves out of fear of being burned as a witch. Which, frankly, is why I find what the priest says next a little bit concerning.
Well, when you systematically remove God from the equation, that's pretty much where it ends up.
I think one of the things that concerns me the most about this sort of Christianity is the way they conflate morality with God. It would be one thing to believe that one flows from the other, but the way that dude is talking about it makes it seem like he views them as so intertwined that they're essentially the same thing. And I won't try to argue that for some people a faith in God helps them be moral, but to say that a lack of God is what leads to immorality implies that there would be no immorality in a world where God is present, and that is very much not the case. Just look at all of history. I think if anything, thinking like this only perpetuates moral decay, because when people are led to believe that God equals morality, then they start to also believe that once they put their faith in God, that means that they're moral. And that allows them to justify doing some truly heinous shit.
And how do you think that it has affected culture in, say, the last 60 years?
All right, so this movie was released in 2015, so... Okay, yeah, right about when segregation ended. Interesting.
I mean, Many have said that we are no longer a Christian nation.
Truth is, we were never really a Christian nation in the sense of a theocracy. But having said that, our founding fathers in the main had a deep faith in God.
No.
And for the most part, our founding fathers believed that God gave us liberty, which meant the ability to make free choices.
All right, that for the most part is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Although, to be fair, what I think he's implying with that for the most part is condoned by the Bible, so I guess it's moral?
I tell you what, you're going to be interviewing other religious leaders, right? Would you be willing to interview some other people first?
Religious leaders?
No.
No, that's like the opposite of what he... God damn it, reporter lady! But yeah, instead of talking to different religious leaders, the priest has the reporter interview regular people. And it's almost certainly because this movie didn't want its protagonist interacting with a Muslim. The first person she talks to is some guy in a soup kitchen who says a bunch of stuff about prayer that I don't really care to go into, but the Cliff Notes version of it is that he's for it. The first interesting person she talks to is a little girl who had an experience with the divine.
So, what happened?
Well, I was sick. Really sick. Mommy and Daddy took me to the hospital. I was lying in my bed, and I heard singing. I knew it wasn't Mommy or Daddy. It was better. And then the light got brighter and brighter, and I started feeling better.
I don't understand. You were healed?
No, I wasn't there. I could see Mommy and Daddy below me, and then the angels took me.
Took you where?
To heaven.
Oh my god, kids suck at telling stories. Just say that you died. We don't need to hear about every fucking detail. I may have been a bit premature in calling her interesting. Although, to be fair, that might be less of a her problem and more of a problem with this movie's script, because every character kind of talks like a 5-year-old telling a boring story. It was difficult to find clips that were under a minute long and made any amount of sense. She does say one interesting thing, though, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump to that.
And you came back?
Jesus had the angels take me back.
Do you know why?
To tell you.
What?
Jesus told me you were coming. And he loves you very much. And he wants you back.
You know, I was beginning to think that there wasn't going to be anything scary in this horror movie, but I gotta say, that part chilled me to the bone. Still not entirely sure what it has to do with the graying of the country, though. I'll be honest, this entire scene I kept waiting for that little girl to start ranting about gay marriage, because that's really the only way it can make sense to include her in what I think the article is about. The last person we see her interview is an older woman. That's pretty much all you need to know about her.
Why do you think they call you the greatest generation?
Do they?
Uh-huh.
Well, I was just a young girl during World War II. But I remember it too. My older brothers were getting called up. The rationing. Tough times.
But the nation made it through.
By the grace of God.
So God was a conscious thought back then.
I think I've realized the fundamental flaw in her article, besides the fact that it doesn't make sense, and that's that she's trying to prove very broad points using very small data sets. Like, not everyone was religious during World War II. This lady may have been, and that may have helped her, but that doesn't really prove anything about anybody but her. She also seems to have based her worldview on a fairly large leap in logic.
Do you read the Bible much, dear?
No.
Well, you'll find that people, even centuries ago, were like this. Times get tough, and they turn to God. Everything is good for a while, and they stay with Him. Then they decide that they are better than God, and tough times return.
All right, correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation, you know? Maybe it was God, but maybe it was inflation. And I don't really know why I'm nitpicking a fictional old lady's faith, except that I don't really know what else to say here. I will be honest, I'm having a lot of trouble talking about this part of the movie because, well, it doesn't really make much sense. I don't think it's a good sign for whatever point they were trying to make that I feel like I understand what this article is less than when we first heard about it. Based on what we see, it seems like it should just be a collection of stories about people's Christian experiences, which would be fine, except that they very clearly establish that it's about the graying of America. It kind of seems like her goal here is to synthesize these interviews into some larger point about American morality, which if that's the case, then this is some terrible journalism, because really all she's doing is collecting a bunch of people's opinions. Or in the case of that little girl, a creepy anecdote. And what's worse is that if there is some grander point this is all supposed to be building to, then the movie super doesn't tell us what it is. Or if it does, then it went over my head completely. Once she's done talking to the old lady, literally all she does is go home and read the Bible. So I guess the message here is to learn to embrace Christianity, which I kind of thought was already assumed given that this is a Christian movie. The entire film, you keep waiting for something to happen that ties this part in with the rest of the plots, but it never comes. Or it does, but I guess I was expecting a little more. You see, before she reads the Bible, she says hello to her husband and son.
Hey, Mom.
I know what you two are doing.
Alright, based on the way they're acting, I also kind of think I know what they were doing, but I'm guessing it's not the same as what she thinks they were doing, because if it were, she would not be this calm right now. But yeah, as it turns out, reporter lady is also junior senior, which, okay. Not entirely sure what that adds to the story. I do like that we get a little update and see that the reconciler's plan worked, although I'm not sure how much I believe that. The movie seems to be implying that these two have become all happy and flirty like that because of their experience with the reconciler. And while I have no doubt that going through that together would have strengthened their bond, I don't think they would have come out the other side quite so giggly. Had I gone through it personally, I feel very confident I would have been left with trauma and all sorts of questions. Who did this? How did they know so much about my life? Why did they care? Are they watching me now? I don't think I would ever fully recover. And if you're like I was when I was watching this movie, by now you've completely forgotten about the people in the basement. But they're there, so yeah, now I gotta finish telling their story. Actually, do I? I don't know, I feel like you guys basically already know what happens. The brothers discuss their disagreement, which in their case was their differing approaches to Christianity. They work them out, and then once they've reconciled, they're allowed to leave. It plays out exactly like you'd expect. Except for one part. There is one final twist that I simply must discuss because, Well, it's a doozy.
Can you forgive me? Of course. Can you forgive me? Ed, your leg is okay?
As it turns out, Ed has not been entirely honest about who he is and why he's there, which frankly is to be expected. I mean, it was 2 twins and then some random guy. Obviously, there was more to his story than what we were seeing.
Alex, James, I have a little confession to make. My name isn't Ed.
You're him! You're Joe Sanford!
No, I'm not. And just for the record, Joe Sanford is not the reconciler.
If you guys are wondering who Joe Sanford is, he's a random person that Ed suggests might be the reconciler. I just skipped over his parts because, like most of this movie, it was a lot of words for something that ultimately didn't really matter.
But you told us the story.
I told you the alleged story. The one that most of the world believes to explain away what has been happening.
Wait, so if Joe isn't the reconciler and you're not the reconciler, who is? More importantly, who are you?
Well, I told you that I was a reporter. Kind of. And as for the reconciler, the 2 of you have been talking about him the entire time you've been in here.
I thought you said that was locked. It was locked. I checked it.
Oh, I don't have anything to add. Like I said, this movie takes forever to say stuff, and I figured if I played the clip I wanted to in its entirety, I'd be more likely to get a copyright claim, so I'm just popping in to break things up. Hello. Although I guess in order to make sure I'm protected by fair use, I need to comment in some way, so, I like Smitty's jacket.
How'd you do that? The same way that I got those cops out of their car, the same way that I helped Jeff pull JR off that cliff. The only difference between those assignments and this one is that it was decided that it was time for me to work a case up close and personal.
So you work for the reconciler?
Yes.
But you said...
I was assigned to this like a reporter is assigned to a story.
Oh, fuck you right in the skull, movie. I think that might have been their attempt to justify the reporter subplot. Honestly, I'm not even confused by it anymore. Now I'm just pissed off. There are too many jobs that get assignments for that connection to make any amount of sense. And outside of that, this dude does not function like a reporter in any way. I'm actually racking my brain trying to think of ways that Ed parallels Reporter Lady, and I genuinely can't. They have about as much to do with each other as a chicken and a filing cabinet. Like, I guess there's probably similarities there, but if there are, you really have to think about them. I guess maybe they're both meant to relay information, but no, because one, a lot of the information Ed gave was meant to be deceptive, and 2, most of what we see Reporter Lady do was gathering information. She never actually writes her article. Honestly, the case could be made that they're opposites, because Reporter Lady's storyline is all about how the graying of America is bad, but Ed is all about getting people to come together and meet in the middle, which is arguably what they meant when they said graying. I don't know, man. Fuck this movie. Also, completely unrelated, but I'm still a little confused by how the cops were locked in their car, because I kind of assumed that it was being sealed by magic, but all he did to let them out was unlock it, so like, could they not have just like...
I'm a messenger, I'm a guardian, and other things as well.
You're a...
So yeah, Ed is an angel, the reconciler is God, who gives a fuck? What I want to talk about is why did he pretend to have a cane? The movie kind of implies that it was to hide the truth about who he is, but was that really something they were concerned about? Like, were they up in heaven planning this? Like, what if when we kidnap them, they guess that I'm an angel? Huh, yeah. You're right, better pretend to have a cane. Also, why does a cane mean that he's not an angel? Can people with canes not go to heaven? Because that's fucked up. And that's not the only question that this twist raises. Going back through the movie, knowing that the reconciler is God is enough to get your mind racing. Why does he need to kidnap them in order to get them to make up? Does everyone who's ever been in a fight end up a victim of the reconciler? And perhaps most importantly, why does God need to handwrite his letters? I mean, he's God. Can't he just... And normally this is the point of the video where I try to tie everything together into a satisfying conclusion, but the reconciler sure didn't do that, so I don't think I have to either. My goal with these videos is usually to try and respond to what I think the movie is trying to say, but I don't think I can do that with the reconciler because I don't know what it's trying to say. If this movie does have a point that it's making, it's that if you ignore his penchant for imprisoning people against their will, God is good. And really my only response to that is, sure, why not? Whatever floats your boat. I don't know why you needed to make a movie about people getting kidnapped in order to say that. But yeah, that's my video. Please like and subscribe and share and comment and kaboom! Oh, I'm not finding that needle anytime soon. Also, if you really like the channel and want to support me, you can do so by going to Patreon or super thanksing me or turning on memberships, which is something that I just added and is probably what I would prefer if you're deciding between those three, because I think YouTube wants its creators to have healthy memberships so that they can take the money that you're giving me, and I just want them to be happy. You know, like happy wife, happy life, but with the algorithm. Which, speaking of memberships, I did say last week that if you turn them on, your perk would be getting access to live premieres. As it turns out, that is not something you can do. So yeah, it will have instead all of the same perks as Patreon. Early access to videos will be the lowest tier. Name in credits, second lowest or second highest, whatever, and then naming credits but larger is the top one. So yeah, sign up if you can and want to, but yeah, and if you're deciding between Patreon and memberships, I'd say memberships. Honestly, if you're on Patreon and want to come to memberships, that's fine. If you like watching videos on YouTube, that might be a cleaner experience for you. Also, I do have some super thanks to super thanks back, but my phone is in the other room, so I will get you next video. But know that I see you, and I like you, and I thank you. But yeah, I think that's the video. Thank you, and good night. Just kidding, that's not the video. I still have to pose. 1 second. I still have to pose for my thumbnail, and for this one, since it's kind of horror-ish, although I think it's not really a horror, I just called it a horror because it's supposed to be Saw, and that's a horror, so it's like a thriller, but not really. I don't know, these Christian movies defy genre because they don't really have plot or stakes or anything interesting. Like, I truly could not imagine if I believed in them, liking them. Because they're not good. Like, I like movies about Christianity if they're well made. These are just not well made movies. Like what's a good Christian movie that I like? Honestly, Saw. Everything that James Wan does. He is surprisingly conservative if you pay attention to his views. Malignant, very anti-abortion. But great movie. Don't have to like it. Why am I talking? I need to pose. Okay, posing. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so, for this one, I feel like since it is a horror movie, I should just be, like, horrified, like... Ah! I don't know. It's weird having my picture. I feel like it's... I don't understand. So, like, I genuinely don't... Content warning. Body... dysmorphia or dysphoria? Whichever one where I think my body looks not that I'm trans, the other one. It's so weird, right? Because, like, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, what? And then I'm looking at myself on the video and I'm like, and then this video is going to look completely different to me and I'm like, at some point, is there not just like my brain can't just pick up on like what it actually looks like? Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, it looks fine. And I look at it later and be like, well, there's like a double chin and like all this stuff. And I'm like, what should I, like, why did I not see that before? Which one is real? How can I trust my brain if it gives me different things all the time? Should I cut this out? What am I talking about? I mean, I know what I'm talking about, but why am I talking about this? Anyway, so, but yeah, that picture looks fine, but I'm like, oh, is it gonna be weird later? You're like, okay, so. My hair looks nice though. Look at that. Ah! The reconciler! He's gonna make me talk about my feelings. Ah! It is very funny to make a Christian movie based around getting people to talk about their feelings, because it's like, why do you think they weren't talking about their feelings to begin with, reconciler? That's how my dog shows that he's anxious. He goes... I feel so... Trying to think... I think it was this was my... So I should do like this, because I'm trying to get more like variety. Like, I kind of feel like if you put all my thumbnails down, they should make a zigzag. We'll see. Actually, if I do this, why don't I move my monitor, and then that's kind of will be what I'm looking at, and then it'll be like... How do I get scared? I'll think about the little girl telling me that Jesus sent her back from heaven to talk to the reporter. That was creepy. Ooh. Ooh. No. Man, it is so stupid when you think, I'm calling y'all stupid, I'm calling me stupid, everyone is stupid, when you think about how lizard-brained this thumbnail stuff, because you might think you're above it, but I promise you, getting like a thumbnail where it's just like taps into just like this primal need to be like, what's behind there? It works on everyone, and it is so dumb what actually works, because that's why like all of those like like family people, they probably spend more time on their thumbnails and everything, and they're all like, this is what I'm like when I record on Vivance. Boopity boop boop boop. Okay. I should probably cut it there because, like, I feel like I'm about to go on a rant on, like, Big Pharma. Which, frankly, I don't know. They give me my drugs. I appreciate them in a lot of ways. I feel like they should make an apocalypse movie. It's like a zombie movie, but people are safely in a house, but then they realize that their meds have run out, and so they just all go mentally ill in a house, and the zombies are kind of incidental, because that's going to be the real apocalypse scenario that a lot of us deal with. I should stop talking. I think I like these. Why am I talking when I say I'm going to stop talking? Done. End of video. Goodbye.